Okay, asked to do a video about Enochian. This is going to be two separate videos. One, I'm going to explain how we use Enochian, then I'm going to explain how we pronounce Enochian. You go through John Dee and Edward Kelly stuff. Every time they're scrying, every time they're dealing with things, they're dealing with little balls of rock, certain types of stone. When you read into what LeVay researched, there's the law of the trapezoid, and you get into the things that Lovecraft talks about with curved versus highly sharp, obtuse angles. You're looking at the different ways that the angelic forms and the demonic forms, however you want to discuss it, the divine forms and the evil forms, whatever, enter into reality or into the world and leave. So it's noted that the sharp, obtuse angles, not only in buildings and in certain conduits, you get the demonic side, and your curved ideals like a dome or the balls that they were using for scrying create the ideal pathway for an angelic and then for a more luciferic form versus an harmonic form. To keep up with the type of language that we're studying, that what most people are deceived by as being the divine is a luciferic form, and those that are deceived by the demonic form is really the Arionic form. One of the best ways to conduit type activities, and you'll see and time again, I'm going to move non-shite here. This would be a quartz crystal that has a lot of sharp and obtuse angles in it. If you do your studying into the Black Book of Satan 1, 2, and 3, and you actually look into what the ONA is doing in several other schools of magic, these types of crystals are actually used as what they call an opening, a conduit from this world to the next, or through the veil, if you will. We have a particular Calico demon that has been cast into the crystal that we use as a ward to let only particular things through. And yes, we use this in every ritual. And anybody who has any type of magical aptitude when they deal with this crystal can see the little dude in there. And it's been akin to, I've called it a fire dragon or a smoky dragon. I've had several Wiccans pick it up and actually feel like they've had smoke blown at their face, which is typical. That's about what it should be doing. Also, within our books and within our teachings, we teach people to meditate with these crystals. Again, this is one of your ways to get from this world to the next, to help you bring in your guardians and so forth. Now, when you're dealing with the Enochian aspect of calling in angels for angel magic, and you have your fire staff, you have your air wand, and you're using those spherical balls of stone, whichever particular type that you're using at the time, that's fine. Again, it works in the same way, just dealing with other forms. Basically, the point of Enochian magic is to work directly with the other side, with the demonic forces or the harmonic forces, or the angelic forces with the luciferic forces. That's the purpose. It's the only magical system that's really devised to really work with these entities. Stuff such as hoodoo and voodoo work closer with the spirit of the dead, or the spirit of a type of being, or the dead spirit, or using the spirit of a cock when you sacrifice it and its blood. Again, that's using natural, what they call lower magic or earth magic, which is fine. But when you want to tap into things like working specifically with Arianic energies or Luciferic energies, you have to tap into it on a different level. Necromancy is another example of tapping into the dead. We personally don't see a need for working with the dead. This church never thought it necessary to work with the dead, and we won't. We would rather work with particular entities that were classified as evil, classified as dark by the pious. So to make things base and easy, and so people understand the spiritual geometry that we use, we have 5 mirrors set up around a rectangular altar, which is, the pentagram is the center of the inverse star. You can find all this information if you just actually read LeVay's work. You'll find this information. It's very simple. Then you have the pentagram with the rectangular altar. Some choose to make it a trapezoid altar. It doesn't really matter. Then the female, which is represented by a triangle downward. And that's your spiritual dimensions that you're using to layer the effect. Now when you bring in the things like the crystals, things of that nature, that's the other way you're preparing for an Arianic force. Because you're bringing in rigid angles. The other thing that you can look at with these mirrors, that you have what they call a double and a cross. Double infinity into the mirrors. If you ever put a mirror in front of another mirror, they reflect into each other infinitely. Alright, when you have 2 of those crossing each other in the form of an X, which is dead center, overlapping everything else, creates that vector. And I believe you all should be aware of Lucifer's looking glass. I don't need to take that any further. If not, do some study. So, with the particular way we're operating Enochian, it is completely askew to what Dee and Kelly are doing, because Dee and Kelly were working what they believe to be angelic forces. We're taking information that has evolved to work with the Arianic forces. And in that way, you have to use the obtuse angles, you have to use the sharp angles. The other thing that is talked about when you get into studying into more modernized magic, where you're using machines, and in particular, out of the Satanic Satanic Rituals by LeVay, the lay, and I'm going to pronounce it wrong. It's the German, I'm just not even going to bother. It's the German ritual that talks about the pentagonals that are actually put all together, and then you, as the celebrant, are in the center, and you're using the different methods. Speaks directly on these things. And this is a different way of encompassing the entire thing. We've expanded the pentagon outside of just the individual, so that both the priest and the female altar, or the priest and the flesh altar, depending on how a particular covenant is working the thing, so that both are encompassed. Because what's happening, a lot of people don't discuss, and you're not going to find much of it. It's hard to find. You have to go through a lot of OTO stuff. You have to go through a lot of, who's the other German group? The Black Order stuff, to understand how you're working on a theta level with this double infinity going back and forth. And one of the jobs of the altar is that she is to take in everything that's been risen up and push that into that double helix. And then she pulls it out of the double helix. And it's up to the priest's job to broadcast that out to what most folks know as the ether. This church does it as the collective unconscious, meaning the unconscious understanding of everything that's alive or matter, the universal term that you want to use. So that you're sending the theta energy into quote-unquote hell, pulling it back and broadcasting it with the power that is there. When we use the Enochian, we're opening up what is considered the watchtowers. These watchtowers is what's set up to keep everything in place, to keep reality as is, in order to combat and keep the devil within his realm of hell. But when we pull from this same reality, we pull from these same towers, the demons that are hidden inside, that's when you're working true demonic magic, true Arianic magic. Because they're only going to be able to come through something that is sharp, obtuse angles, and clear enough to break through the veil. Which is why I highly recommend everybody get a quartz crystal, meditate with it, vibrate it, use that type of thing. And we'll discuss vibration in the next video. Obviously we're using all the other things in rituals everybody should be aware. I don't feel the need to be using fire staffs and air daggers to control these entities. I respect them, they respect me. Now, not to say I won't use my athame to cut their asses down if they're not cooperating. But with the amount of energy that's being passed through any of our rituals, there should be no need for improper conduct between the entities or us working with them. So when we're calling them in, we're calling in the Calico Demon, we're using the Enochian to open up the watchtowers, get the other demons in, so that we can call in the Davids, we can call in the Dudes, we can call in the Druge. Then we use what we have, we send our request, the energy is then pushed through the double helix so that Armon can bless and sustain what's been requested. It's then pulled back out and broadcasted into the collective unconscious, or the collective conscience, or whatever term you want to use, the aether, if you will. Then the way that it's done like this is because when you see the entrapment of how the watchtowers work over the basin of the abyss, you also have what most people understand. As it goes down into the abyss, you have what's known as the 91 governors. They're little angel guardians, little guardian angels that spiral down, and it goes down 30 levels, which is why it's called the 30 Aethers, and you have 3 in each. But within that spiral, into the chasm, if you will, are 57 Calico demons that lay throughout. So, if we can throw open the gates, get the Calico guys out, and meet us on this plane through the crystal, then we can take the energy and send it through the double helix of the Lucifer's portal, Lucifer's looking glass, into the double helix of the double infinity. That's how we bypass having to use the watchtowers to get the energy to Ahriman. Everything is done in a very specific way and for a very specific reason. Yes, Enochian magic is the base, and the Enochian calls is the base of what we're doing. But we have expanded and moved beyond because we're moving into the darker forces that even Crowley was afraid to play with.